is when I think of hip-hop, when I think of street, when I think of urban, I think of one man, Rufus. Here he is. I imagine you grooving along in your brogues, that kind of sound. That's very much what's playing, I imagine, all the time on your pod. Other MP3 players, abbreviations for other MP3 players are available. But actually, it's sort of nicely tied in because today's musical guest is very much a recommendation that's come through the ears of Rufus.
That's right, Steve. As you know, I never rest but for my search for new music. If I'm not going to gigs, I'm walking the streets of London, listening to buskers. Actually, I do like listening to buskers and seeing and checking out CDs and stuff, but I was at Spitalfields Market in East London, and I was walking on the Brick Lane around the side of it, I think, and I saw this guy, and he's a guy with a white guy with dreadlocks, and he wears kind of very grungy clothes, and he had about 150 people around him, and all he had was a microphone, a little tiny pig amp, and an FX pedal.
Was he slamming the bankers?
He wasn't actually.
Was he saying, "Let's throw a bin through the RBS window"? Is that what was happening?
No, I'm sure a lot of his brothers and sisters were doing that sort of thing last weekend. But no, he was.
If you see a white guy with dreads, you're straight there, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. But he was.
So you'd picked up, I don't know, a street bin or some bricks. You were running towards the bank. You thought, wait, no, hang on. I've just come from the city. I've made myself known with that filthy protest.
Yeah.
But what's this?
Someone's making his anger known through spoken word and sounds. This is extraordinary. My energy's diverted from that massive window towards aural pleasure.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Good use of aural.
Yeah.
And so what was this man?
I was getting a bit nervous when I come up to the word aural, because I never know whether or not it's okay to say oral.
I never come up to the word aural.
Okay.
I never approach it. I always skirt round it. I see it approaching and I run away.
I'm like a horse at Beecher's Brook at the National. I'm approaching it at quite a speed, and I suddenly think I'm going to have to say the word aural. Do I make a big ow kind of thing about it, or do I just go straight for oral and then hope that no one thinks about SEX?
I've never heard anyone say aural in my life.
It sounds like someone who can't say owl.
Yeah, it's like when Americans say squirrel.
Or mirror.
If this show had a word of the day, probably be aural. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were approaching the word aural with some
trepidation, and suddenly I thought there seemed to be a lot of young people here gathering around, tapping their feet and listening appreciatively. And I watched this guy, and he was absolutely amazing, because he builds, well, as we'll all see in the studio a little later, he builds sounds from nothing. And if you listen to the song by the end of it, you'd be convinced that there was definitely some drums, probably some keyboards, and maybe some string instruments involved. But it's all his voice, and he layers it 4 or 5 different layers, maybe more. It's a breathtaking experience, and I thought as a live experience it would be just what Steve Show listeners would want.
So his name is MC Xander. He'll be coming up on the show later. I love the fact that you're walking through a marketplace, probably buying some mutton and some figgy pudding, and you think to yourself, fresh hip-hop beats. I shall bring those back to Six Music. Yeah, we'll have some of that a bit later on in the show. Thank you very much indeed, and happy Easter to you. Oh, Sammy, how are you, my sweetheart?
That was really surreal. I'm alright, I'm very tired.
Are you?
Yeah, obviously this is a pre-record. I was making milkshakes this morning.
You are very young.
Yes.
You're a student.
Yes.
I've heard that now they've proven that actually when, students and young people are generally tired and a bit mopey, apparently that is physiological. It's not just general laziness and attitude. Apparently they've actually tracked down that is because your body is growing and developing. I mean, I'm presuming you've stopped growing now, have you?
I stopped growing when I was about 11.
Right, okay.
That's why I am this short.
So that's no excuse. You are just lazy and...
pretty much, yeah, but I have been working quite hard, Steve. I wouldn't...
Oh, yeah, milkshakes, how hard can that be? Put some stuff in a tub, shake it up,
It's
serve it
Easter,
out.
Steve. The kids are crying out for milkshakes.
Are they? They're wild for milkshakes.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in the youth anymore, you see. I've never been to a milkshake parlour. Is it difficult work?
It's just labour-intensive.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've got milk on my jeans.
No. Do you know what would cheer you up?
What?
A musical choice of your choice.
You know me so well. This is probably going to be my album of the summer. It's a reggae version of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Okay, I'll stop you there. It's a reggae version.
Yeah.
The whole album redone in reggae style?
Dub Side of the Moon and Radio Dread. It's in that vein, that theme. And this is the first track on the album. Oh, it's a blinder, Steve.
Okay. Whoa, Sammy, Samuel. Stop. You've got to forewarn me when the reggae cover version of Sgt. Pepper is approaching its ending.
If you actually have listened to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, that's where the original track stops. I didn't think I had to pre-warn you. Everybody knows that album.
I am busy doing other things, like not paying attention.
Apparently.
And eating cake. Yeah, it was tremendous. Who was it by, and what do you want to tell us about it?
It's the Easy Stands Out Tomorrow, which is the real tomorrow Monday. I'll just say that's easier. Physically and digitally.
And is the whole album done exactly
and it's
as it...
absolutely fantastic. It is going to be the album of summer.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. A cracking musical choice, even if you didn't forewarn me. Do you know what? We're recording the show late, obviously. We're not here. Do not email or text in. Do not come down to the station when you are particularly amused or particularly appalled by something we said. We're not here. We are recording this earlier in the week, and it's the evening time. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Let's just kick back. What about if we had a couple of brewskis? With that, what do you think?
I'd go down a treat.
Hey, like a cold chilled beer.
Couple of birthday beers.
Yeah. So, birthday beer, yeah. So, I've got a shiny sixpence. Who's interested in going out? Who's going to go out during the show and buy a lovely couple of beers?
Well, I've got that long-standing hip issue that means I can't go downstairs.
Sure.
Yeah. I only ever really send people out to small errands, particularly involving alcohol.
Okay.
It doesn't surprise me that it falls to me, so yes,
Can
Steve.
you get served?
I have my ID. Yeah, I got ID'd for the lottery last year. You only have to be 16 for that. So as long as I take my driving licence, I'll be fine.
Okay, so orders, please.
Or maybe a couple of ciders.
Couple of ciders, pretty wild. Going a little bit crazy. It's birthday boy. End of the show, going to be pie-eyed or Rufus?
I think a couple of large bottles of Czech imported lagers.
Oh, very, very interesting. 2 bottles of Baileys for me. And what about yourself?
I'm going to have a lemonade.
Now, you see, there is some controversy because Sammy cannot drink. She claims that she cannot drink, that she does not like to drink alcohol. It gives her dizzy fits and it makes her ill. But we discovered recently, am I right in saying?
I probably can drink.
We've discovered through careful... Yes, you weren't aware of this, Rufus.
No.
Yeah.
But since she has joined this show, we have been surreptitiously slipping her booze. And apparently the tests come back and she can drink a little bit of beer. But so far you've only had you only dared to have half a shandy or something, is that right?
I barely even tried a few mouthfuls of beer. Are you going to try and get me drunk, Steve?
Well, I wasn't going to listen, hear me out. All my thought was, why not have a bottle of beer during the course of today's show? And notice how I said during the case of today's show.
Yeah.
That's like a Darren Brown mind.
It is very clever.
trying to make her. But I'm saying is maybe have a beer, and who knows? By the end of the show, you will either be cured, and thus you can finally join the rest of us in a sort of alcoholic middle-aged stupor, or you'll be having dizzy spells, you'll be throwing up, yet more disgrace. So anyway, Sammy, what's your thought?
Just poured water down my bra. Sorry, I'm somewhere else. Yeah, I'll go. That's fine. I'm quite happy to be used as some sort of experiment.
Fantastic guinea pig! I love guinea pigs. Okay, good. Right, well, I'm going to dish out, because of this, I'm going to find a fresh, crisp £5 from my wallet, and that should be enough to sort us out. And who knows, people, by the end of today's programme, we could have something quite dramatic. It's nice to have a little frisson during the show, isn't it? New tune here from King Creosote. Man, Nick Cave can still turn him out, can't he? Man alive, 2004 he made that. He's still churning out some cracking tunes from the album Abattoir Blues. That's There She Goes, My Beautiful World, from Nick Cave. You remember I very briefly worked with Louis Walsh recently.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to Louis, in all seriousness, because I genuinely think it would be a fascinating collaboration, I was trying to persuade him to get Westlife to record some Nick Cave songs. I think it'd be amazing. I'd love to see what that clash would occur, because there's nothing wrong with those boys, they do what they do, and if you're a fan of it, good luck to them. But I'm thinking, obviously they often do cover versions, and obviously they've been cherry-picked to appeal to a certain audience, but wouldn't it be amazing to hear them do, the Mercy Seat, or Red Right Hand, doing a song about the electric chair from Westlife.
I'm thinking, though, with Walsh's shrewd business brain, he's going to be thinking, that's going to alienate Westlife's audience, and Cave's audience aren't going to want it, so it's just for your sick pleasure.
Yeah. So many things are.
That's true.
During today's programme, Sammy knows that. And so I don't want that to say if you just tuned in, that sounds completely untoward. But if you're listening on the iPlayer, rewind, you'll understand what my reference. And I don't want to keep bringing it up because it's very I'd probably be very surprised if they've kept it in. To be honest, considering this is pre-recorded, they're probably chopped out. There's just a big gap now. It's probably Wogan himself. I always think he's the emergency default. They just phone him up at home and he just reads a droll letter from Mrs. Wilson, who's, in my mind at least, always on holiday in the Maldives. But anyway, what were we talking about? Yes, you remember last week on the show, we were talking about Claire Balding and her indiscretion.
It all kicked off,
referring to that jockey's teeth, and I was very much, straight there. I was one of probably the first people to observe that.
You were there at the beginning.
I was there at the beginning, and it turns out, I don't know if you've read since, that she's been severely slapped on the wrist.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying that, should she resign? And I just think it's very nice to know that we're at the cutting edge of lightweight, nothingy, of no importance news trivia.
Yeah.
It's nice to know we're right there at the very front.
Is that a resigning matter?
From me or her?
What an absurd... Oh dear, the world's just falling apart.
It is, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know. Is the BBC now just... I mean, who is... Are we terrified of all things?
I'm not sure I'm going to say anything for the rest of the show.
I know, I genuinely don't. I honestly... This is one of the problems I have, is as a broadcaster...
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are anymore. I genuinely... I
you're
realise,
a pro.
Yeah, but I've become sort of unmoored from whatever rules there are.
Yeah.
I like to think I have a sort of moral code, and I like to think that I don't set out to offend, but I don't... Genuinely now, I don't know what upsets people. It seems that you can pretty much open your mouth and someone somewhere will be offended.
I think the official code now is very reactive, so if, when we leave the building, there's a mob with flaming torches, trying to slay us, then it will be written into the BBC rules that you can't say whatever generated that anger. Yes,
they're ready to slay us.
Absolutely,
they're not just going to give us a stern talking to. They're going to slay us.
People go nuts these days for anything.
But Rufus, you seem like a man who's very abreast of the sort of current moral codes. I imagine you can navigate those choppy waters seamlessly at any perhaps dinner party or ambassadorial ball. How does one figure out now what's allowed and what's not?
I don't know. It's a very fine line you tread. Of course, as a gentleman, a man who's dyed in the wool, my aim is to never offend anybody and to be kind of tip-top at all times. But you've got to keep plates spinning. You've got to make sure that people feel reassured, but not ignored as well. That's the other thing. You can't feel like people are being completely like if there's a particular group of people that you've managed to offend.
Yes.
So you've got to look at the other side of it and not offend them.
But you say I've got to keep plates spinning, but what if I'm from a preserve all crockery society with the very idea of plates being spun offends me? Why would you endanger plates? You wild, crazed. I'm I don't know, Royal Dalton's chief archivist.
Are you?
Yes. Yes, a lot of people didn't realise that. It's a strange string to my bow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was given the job against my will, actually. Apparently, like jury service, you're obliged to look after what I presume is the Queen's crockery. Is that what Royal Dalton is?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
You see, there's another instance, because I noticed that Michelle Obama, during a recent visit here, she got in trouble because she touched the Queen, or she was very affectionate towards the Queen. Now, again, you see, I'd have thought that. If I saw the Queen, I'd give her a big hug, big bear hug, lift her up off her feet. Yeah, give her a couple of high fives, kiss on both cheeks and the lips, and dare I say it, the bottom.
Yeah,
who knows?
Just a little slap on it.
Not a kiss on the bum. That would be rude. But just a little slap, slap as she walks away. Oh, cheeky.
Yeah, don't forget me.
Exactly. Exactly. Nothing wrong with that in my head, of course. But I suspect that that's not a royal protocol. I don't know. Again,
well, if she gets upset, you can say, "Look, man, I'm looking after your crockery."
Exactly. Is that a euphemism? I don't know what you mean. But you've had dalliances with the royals.
Yeah, I think when people touch the Queen, and everybody takes photos and jumps up and down, it's mainly because they got the etiquette wrong, and we can kind of be very posh and pompous and British about it, rather than how offended the Queen might be. I think the Queen is only offended because she's told she should be. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.